The Suiban scum who attacked the human passenger ship were about to learn why you never mess with humanity. They thought their fancy tech made them stronger, better than us primitive humans. Well, guess what, you alien pieces of trash? We will show you what real strength is. Captain John Blake stared into his whiskey glass, the amber liquid swirling with memories of the day those tentacled Suiban bastards went too far. He had seen a lot of action in his years, fought in more scraps and tight spots than most, but that civilian transport massacre was something else. Thousands of innocent men, women, and children snuffed out because some alien wanted to throw their weight around. John's mind flashed back to that fateful day. The passenger ship, filled with families and peaceful travelers, had been an easy target. The Suiban warships appeared out of nowhere, their weapons blazing. Explosions rocked the ship as John, stationed on a nearby outpost, watched helplessly. The cries for help, the screams of terror, echoed in his mind. Not today, John muttered to himself, his grip tightening around the glass. Today you learn what it means to be human. Today you get a lesson in what happens when you piss off the wrong species. John finished his drink in one gulp and stood up. The bar was dimly lit, filled with off-duty soldiers and civilians trying to forget the horrors of war for a moment. But there was no forgetting for John. Not until the Suiban paid dearly for every human life they took. He walked out of the bar, his mind set on one thing: revenge. The Suiban had started this war, but John was determined to end it, and he knew just where to start. John made his way to the command center, a sense of purpose driving his steps. He found Admiral Kerrigan poring over battle reports, the weight of the recent attack heavy on her shoulders. She looked up as John entered, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Captain Blake," she greeted him, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "I assume you're here because you have a plan." "Yes, Admiral," John replied, standing tall. "I want to lead a strike team. We need to hit the Suiban where it hurts, show them that humanity won't be bullied." Kerrigan studied him for a moment before nodding. "I agree. We've identified a Suiban forward base that coordinates these attacks. It's heavily fortified, but if anyone can lead a successful assault, it's you." "Thank you, Admiral. We'll make them regret the day they decided to mess with us." As John left the command center, he knew this was just the beginning. The battle ahead would be fierce, but humanity had something the Suiban lacked: an unbreakable spirit and the will to fight for their survival. John gathered his team, each member a seasoned warrior ready to lay down their life for the cause. They boarded their ship, a sleek, battle-worn frigate, and set a course for the Suiban base. The journey was tense, the silence filled with unspoken resolve. John briefed his team on the mission, outlining their objectives and the risks involved. "Remember," he said, looking each of them in the eye, "we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting for every human life lost, for every family torn apart. Let's show these aliens what it means to mess with humanity." As they approached the Suiban base, the ship's sensors picked up multiple enemy signatures. John took a deep breath, his mind focused on the task at hand. The time for mourning was over. Now it was time for action. The battle for humanity's future had begun. The Suiban launched a surprise attack on the human colony of Zeta Prime, thinking it would be easy pickings. They bombarded it from orbit, killing thousands of civilians to demoralize the humans into surrendering. But they forgot one thing: never underestimate humanity. John Blake, now a commander, led a squadron of fighter pilots through the chaos, dodging energy bolts and debris. The human forces fought back hard, using hit-and-run attacks to strike from the shadows before vanishing into the black. It was pure chaos for the Suiban, never knowing when their ships would start shooting each other due to human hackers scrambling their systems. As John maneuvered his sleek fighter through the thick of battle, he barked orders to his squadron: "Stay in their blind spots. Hit them where it hurts." The real turning point was when John and his squadron launched a daring counterattack. Using their size and agility, they stayed in the Suiban fighters' blind spots, turning the tide of the battle. It was a knife fight in a phone booth, pure skill against skill. The humans' determination and grit began to show. The Suiban, used to overwhelming their enemies with superior technology, were thrown off balance. One by one, their ships started to fall, and their formation broke apart. "Keep pushing. Don't let up," John shouted, his voice filled with steely resolve. As the Suiban forces retreated, John knew this was just the beginning. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. He watched the enemy ships jump to hyperspace, a grim expression on his face. "Today we made them bleed," John said to his squadron over the comms. "But this fight is far from finished. Get ready for the next round. They won't give up easily, and neither will we." The Battle of Zeta Prime was a small victory, but it ignited the fire within humanity. They had shown that they could stand up to the Suiban, but John knew they needed more than just courage. They needed a plan to strike back harder and smarter. Back at the command center, Admiral Kerrigan was reviewing the battle data when John arrived. She looked up, her eyes reflecting both pride and concern. "Good work out there, John. But we need to stay vigilant. The Suiban will regroup and come back stronger." John nodded. "I know, Admiral. We need to take the fight to them, disrupt their operations before they can launch another attack." Kerrigan leaned forward, her expression serious. "We have intel on a Suiban forward base that's coordinating these assaults. It's heavily fortified, but if we can take it out, we'll buy ourselves some much-needed time." "Just give the order," John said, determination etched on his face. "We'll hit them hard and fast." As preparations for the mission began, John took a moment to reflect on the stakes. The colony of Zeta Prime was just one of many human settlements that the Suiban threatened. This war wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting everything humanity had built. John gathered his team, each member ready to risk their life for the mission. They boarded their ship, nerves steeled and spirits high. The journey to the Suiban base was tense, the silence only broken by the hum of the ship's engines. "We know what we're up against," John said, addressing his team. "The Suiban think they can break us, but they're wrong. We fight for our homes, our families, and our future. Let's show them what humanity is made of." As they approached the Suiban base, the ship's sensors picked up multiple enemy signatures. John took a deep breath, his mind focused on the task at hand. The battle for Zeta Prime had been just the beginning. Now it was time to take the fight to the enemy and show them the true strength of humanity. The mission to strike the Suiban base was critical, and John knew that success here could change the course of the war. The fate of countless lives depended on their actions, and John was determined to see it through. John Blake's team was handpicked for the mission. Infiltrate a Suiban facility and steal plans for a new superweapon. The intel suggested the weapon could turn the tide of the war in the Suiban's favor if completed. They managed to hijack a Suiban supply ship and bluff their way past security, but once inside, the real challenge began. The facility was crawling with Suiban soldiers, all armed to the teeth. John's team split up, planting explosives around the facility to create a distraction while John headed for the main research lab. There, he encountered Antares, a top Suiban scientist, who was waiting for him. "Welcome, human," Antares sneered, his tentacles twitching with amusement. "Did you really think you could waltz in here unnoticed?" They fought fiercely, knocking over tables full of beakers and high-tech gizmos. Antares was skilled, but no match for a determined human with nothing to lose. John took him down with a quick jab to the throat and a roundhouse to the head. As John started the download of the plans, the facility began to shake from the explosives going off. John barely made it to the hangar bay, leaping into a Suiban fighter just as the roof caved in. The stolen plans turned the tide of the war, but Antares had hinted at a much larger threat looming over the galaxy. Antares' last words echoed in John's mind as he flew back to the human base. "You think this will stop us? You have no idea what's coming." Back at the base, the data was analyzed, revealing the true nature of the Suiban superweapon. It was designed to create artificial black holes, capable of destroying entire planets. The implications were terrifying, but the plans also revealed vulnerabilities that humanity could exploit. John reported to Admiral Kerrigan, who was visibly disturbed by the findings. "We need to move fast," she said. "If the Suiban complete this weapon, it could mean the end for us." "We'll take them out before they have a chance," John replied, his voice filled with determination. "But we need more intel. We need to know where they're building this thing." As the team prepared for their next mission, John couldn't shake the feeling that Antares' warning was more than just a threat. There was something bigger at play, something the Suiban were desperately trying to hide, and John was determined to uncover it. The next mission was to locate the primary construction site of the superweapon. Using the stolen plans, they pinpointed a remote Suiban-controlled planet. John briefed his team, emphasizing the importance of stealth and precision. We go in, get the intel, and get out. Minimal engagement, maximum efficiency. The journey to the remote planet was fraught with tension. Every member of the team knew the stakes. As they approached, their ship's cloaking device kept them hidden from the Suiban sensors. John piloted the ship with expert precision, landing in a secluded area away from the main facility. The team moved silently through the dense alien jungle, their movements practiced and coordinated. They reached the perimeter of the Suiban base, where the construction of the superweapon was well underway. Massive structures loomed in the distance, shrouded in an eerie glow. John signaled his team to spread out and gather as much information as possible. They infiltrated the facility, avoiding patrols and security cameras. John accessed the central database, downloading critical data about the weapon's progress and key personnel involved in its development. As John completed the download, a sudden alarm blared throughout the facility. "We've been detected," he hissed into his comm. "Abort mission. Everyone, fall back to the extraction point." The team fought their way through the facility, engaging in fierce skirmishes with Suiban soldiers. Plasma bolts flew through the air, and the sound of explosions echoed in the distance. John covered his team's retreat, his combat instincts sharp and unyielding. They reached the extraction point, where their ship awaited. As they boarded and took off, John glanced back at the facility, knowing that their actions had bought humanity precious time. The data they had retrieved was invaluable, and it would help turn the tide of the war. Back at the human base, the data was analyzed, revealing the location of the primary construction site and key weaknesses in the Suiban's defenses. John and Admiral Kerrigan strategized their next move, preparing for a decisive strike against the Suiban superweapon. "We have what we need," John said, his voice resolute. "Now, it's time to finish this." John and his team were on a high after the successful infiltration mission, but the intelligence they gathered came with a grim revelation. The Suiban were not working alone. They had allies in the shadows, a powerful group known as the Syndicate. This shadowy organization was bent on harnessing ancient technology to control the galaxy, and they were as dangerous as they were elusive. Admiral Kerrigan called an emergency meeting to discuss their next steps. "We've identified a Syndicate cell operating on a desert planet in the outskirts of Suiban space. They have been working with the Suiban to develop this superweapon. We need to shut them down." John nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll handle it, but we need to be prepared for anything. The Syndicate is ruthless." The team prepared for the mission with a renewed sense of urgency. They knew the stakes were higher than ever. As they approached the desert planet, the harsh winds whipped around their ship, creating an eerie backdrop for the impending battle. The Syndicate's base was hidden beneath the sands, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers. John led his team into the heart of the complex, moving with practiced stealth. The corridors were dimly lit, the air thick with tension. Suddenly, plasma bolts seared through the air, catching them off guard. The Syndicate had anticipated their arrival. John's team scattered, returning fire as they sought cover. The firefight was intense, the Syndicate forces well-trained and heavily armed. John's heart pounded as he barked orders. "Push forward, we need to reach the control room." Inch by inch, they fought their way through the maze-like facility. The Syndicate forces were relentless, but John's team had something the enemy lacked: unyielding resolve. They pressed on, determined to complete their mission. As they neared the control room, the fighting intensified. John could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on him. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. They had to succeed. When they finally breached the control room, they were met with a shocking sight. Dr. Aurora Vox, one of their own, stood with the Syndicate commander. Her eyes gleamed with a mad fervor as she declared her allegiance to the Syndicate. "You fools," she spat. "You would destroy our only chance at true power. I won't allow it." Before anyone could react, Vox activated the artifact they had been working on. Energy bolts lanced out, striking down several of John's team. John himself was hit, collapsing to the ground as Vox escaped with the artifact. The betrayal was a devastating blow, and John knew the battle against the Syndicate was far from over. As John lay injured, he realized the Syndicate was more dangerous than he had thought. They had powerful allies and even more powerful technology. John's mission was clear. He had to stop the Syndicate, no matter the cost. Back at the base, John's wounds were tended to, and the remaining team members regrouped. Admiral Kerrigan's face was grim as she addressed them. We need to strike back. The Syndicate has the artifact, and Dr. Vox's betrayal has shown us how far they're willing to go. We can't let them succeed. John stood, wincing at the pain but fueled by determination. We'll stop them. We'll track them down and end this, for the sake of humanity and all the lives they've destroyed. The team prepared for their next mission, knowing that the fight against the Syndicate would be the most challenging yet. They had faced betrayal, loss, and overwhelming odds, but their resolve was unshaken. They would fight on, no matter the cost. As they boarded their ship and set a course for the Syndicate's headquarters, John felt a steely resolve settle over him. The battle ahead would be fierce, but he was ready. They all were. The Syndicate had made a grave mistake, and now they would pay. The final confrontation was drawing near, and John knew that this time there would be no turning back. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they would give everything they had to ensure victory. John Blake and his team prepared for the final assault on the Syndicate's stronghold, their determination steeled by the betrayal they had suffered. The location of the Syndicate headquarters had been revealed through the intel gathered in their last mission. It was time to end this once and for all. The Syndicate's stronghold was located on a remote, hostile planet, its harsh landscape a fitting backdrop for the final confrontation. As their ship approached the planet, John briefed his team one last time. We face the worst they can throw at us. This is our chance to put an end to their plans. Stay sharp, stay together, and we will come out on top. The team landed in a concealed area, moving swiftly through the rugged terrain towards the Syndicate's fortress. The stronghold was heavily fortified, bristling with advanced weaponry and guarded by elite Syndicate soldiers. John knew this would be their toughest battle yet. As they reached the outer defenses, John signaled for his team to take positions. The element of surprise was crucial. With a nod, they launched their attack. Explosions rocked the perimeter as charges planted by the team blew open a path into the fortress. Plasma fire erupted from all sides as Syndicate forces scrambled to repel the intruders. John led the charge, his rifle blazing as he mowed down enemy soldiers. The battle was fierce, with both sides sustaining heavy casualties. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal and ozone, the sounds of combat echoing through the corridors of the stronghold. They fought their way to the heart of the facility, where the artifact was being prepared for activation. There, they found Dr. Aurora Vox and the Syndicate's leader, a formidable figure named Valen. Vox's eyes burned with fanatical zeal, while Valen's expression was one of cold determination. "You're too late," Vox sneered. "The artifact will reshake the galaxy, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." "We'll see about that," John replied, his voice steady. He charged forward, engaging Valen in a brutal hand-to-hand combat, while his team spread out to deal with the Syndicate soldiers and Vox. Valen was a skilled fighter, his strikes powerful and precise. But John fought with the fury of a man who had lost too much and had nothing left to lose. The clash was intense, each blow resonating with the weight of their convictions. Meanwhile, Vox attempted to activate the artifact, but John's team had other plans. They planted charges around the artifact, intending to destroy it once and for all. As Vox realized what they were doing, she screamed in rage, firing wildly at the team. John saw an opening and delivered a crushing blow to Valen, sending him sprawling. He turned his attention to Vox, who was now desperately trying to stop the team from setting off the explosives. With a quick, decisive move, John incapacitated her, and his team finished planting the charges. "Get to the extraction point," John ordered, as the charges were set to detonate. They fought their way back through the fortress, Syndicate forces hot on their heels. The facility shook as explosions began to rip through its structure, the artifact's power destabilizing. They reached their ship just in time, boarding it and blasting off as the Syndicate stronghold was consumed in a massive explosion. The artifact, along with the Syndicate's plans, was obliterated. Back at the base, Admiral Kerrigan greeted them with a mixture of relief and pride. "You did it. The Syndicate is finished." John nodded, exhaustion etched on his face. "We did what we had to do, but we can't rest yet." Antares's message warned of an even greater threat. Kerrigan's expression turned serious. "We'll be ready. But for now, let's take a moment to honor those we've lost and prepare for the battles yet to come." The final showdown with the Syndicate had been won, but the war was far from over. As they looked towards the future, John and his team knew they would face whatever came next with the same determination and courage that had seen them through so far. With the Syndicate defeated and their stronghold reduced to rubble, John Blake hoped they might finally have a moment to breathe. But the ominous warning left by Antares, the Suiban scientist, loomed large. The Syndicate had been just a part of a greater, far more terrifying puzzle. Humanity had to prepare for the next, even deadlier threat. John, Admiral Kerrigan, and the rest of the High Command gathered to analyze the information recovered from the Syndicate's databases. The data confirmed their worst fears: an ancient and powerful enemy known as the Overmind, which had once enslaved entire galaxies, was awakening. "We have to act fast," Kerrigan said, her voice resolute. "The Overmind's forces are beginning to stir, and if they regroup, they'll be unstoppable." John nodded. "We need to rally our allies. This is not a fight we can win alone." Messages were sent across the galaxy, calling on every allied race and faction to join forces against the Overmind. Humanity's recent victories had earned their respect, and the response was overwhelming. Fleets from distant star systems converged, united by the common threat. As preparations for the battle intensified, John addressed the assembled fleet. "We faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. Today, we stand as one against a force that seeks to enslave us all. We fight not just for our survival, but for the freedom of every being in this galaxy. Together, we will prevail." The human fleet, joined by their allies, assembled in the shadow of the Overmind's colossal ship. The massive biomechanical construct loomed ominously, its dark surface bristling with weapons and teeming with hostile forces. John piloted his fighter, leading the vanguard of the assault. As they approached the Overmind's ship, the battle began in earnest. Waves of enemy fighters swarmed towards them, and the sky lit up with a barrage of energy weapons. The chaos was overwhelming, but John's focus was unwavering. "We need to hit their central core," he communicated to the fleet. "Take out the main power source, and we can cripple their entire operation." The fleet pushed forward, engaging in fierce dogfights and weaving through deadly crossfire. John's squadron carved a path through the enemy lines, protecting the bombers tasked with delivering the final blow. The battle was brutal, with losses mounting on both sides. As they neared the core, the Overmind's defenses intensified. Massive energy beams sliced through space, targeting the human fleet. John dodged and weaved, his fighter moving with precision and skill. He could see the core now, a pulsating, glowing mass at the heart of the Overmind's ship. "This is it," he called out. "All units, focus fire on the core." The fleet converged, unleashing a relentless barrage on the core. Explosions rocked the Overmind's ship as the core began to destabilize. The enemy's fire grew more desperate, but John and his team pressed on, determined to see it through. Finally, with a blinding flash, the core exploded. The Overmind's ship shuddered, and massive sections began to break apart. The enemy forces faltered, their coordination shattered. "We did it," someone shouted over the comms. The fleet pulled back, watching as the Overmind ship was consumed in a series of cataclysmic explosions. The remnants of the enemy fleet scattered, fleeing into the void. As the dust settled, the human fleet regrouped. Cheers and relief echoed through the comms, but John knew this was just a temporary respite. Back at the base, Admiral Kerrigan addressed the victorious fleet. "Today, we struck a decisive blow against the Overmind, but we must remain vigilant. There are still forces out there that will seek to challenge us. We must be ready." John stood beside her, his expression determined. "We showed them what humanity is capable of, and we will continue to stand against any threat that comes our way." As they prepared for the next phase of their mission, John felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they would face it together, united by the bonds of friendship and common cause forged in the fires of war. For the fallen, for the future, for humanity. The fight continued, and they were ready.